Giants have officially traded Dexter Lawrence, and in return, they got the number 10 overall pick from the Cincinnati Bengals. Dexter Lawrence requested a trade recently, demanded a trade even. The Giants, they wanted to get a deal done, but simply put, Dexter Lawrence did not want to be a New York Giant any longer. And the Giants, I don't know how they could pass up on the 10th overall pick. That is a haul that we did not expect them to receive. There were rumors that they wouldn't get more than a second-round pick, but nevertheless, they're picking twice in the top 10 on Thursday night. This is going to be one fun NFL draft. I can't wait for that. Now, I think there's a lot to say here about Dexter Lawrence, the massive hole that's left in the Giants defense after trading him away. That's an issue that the Giants are going to have to struggle to overcome, and we'll dive into that. But there is a lot of excitement now for the New York Giants as we head into Thursday's NFL draft. This is the ideal outcome if you had to trade Dexter Lawrence. Now you're picking in the top 10. So exciting stuff here. Excited to go ahead and dive into it on today's episode of Fireside Giants, which is presented by Prize Picks. I'm Anthony Rivardo, and that's my co-host, Alex Wilson. Alex, how you doing today, man? How are you feeling? Dexter Lawrence, no longer a New York Giant. That's kind of sad, but hey, now we're picking twice in the top 10. What's your feeling about it?
Oh, man. I mean, what was it, 9 p.m. last night, and Knicks are beating the brakes off the Hawks. I'm having a tremendous evening, have a little margarita, and bang, Dexter Lawrence is a Cincinnati Bengal. And I'll tell you what, I thought that was going to be a lot less in terms of draft capital in return. I thought it was going to be a late first-round pick, mid-round selection, getting the 10th overall pick. And according to some reports now, that 10th overall pick, not 10th round pick, 10th overall pick was on the board for the Giants for the past 2 weeks, which means they didn't really want to trade him. In fact, they tried to get him to, agree to a different deal. It is very evident to me now, Anthony, he did not want to be here. $28 million, 1-year extension, that was an easy yes for the Giants. They probably were like, absolutely. But I don't even think he gave them the chance to make that deal. I don't even think that necessarily was an option for the Giants, because that deal would have been an easy yes. He clearly just did not want to be here.
Yeah, the reporting on that is that the Giants did offer him close to the amount of money that he wanted, but they refused to offer him the 1-year extension. They weren't giving him the structure of the contract that he wanted, and he didn't even give them an opportunity to counter. He said, I don't want to be here. That's it. And told you guys, I knew that Dexter Lawrence didn't want to be here. This was not just about money. He just didn't want to play for the New York Giants anymore. And if that's the case, you trade him and you get what you can. And the Giants got a lot for Dexter Lawrence. Alex, when we were doing mock trades on the channel a couple days ago, we were talking about, could they get a future first? Could they get a second this year? Could they get a 25th overall pick, somewhere in that range? We never saw a top 10 pick truly coming. Like, we predicted that that's an outside possibility. We floated out the idea of getting the 10th overall pick from the Cincinnati Bengals, but we didn't think it was a realistic outcome. Pretty exciting. Now the Giants are going to have, again, a very fun Thursday night. So what are you looking at here? Giants picking 5 and 10. What are your thoughts?
I mean, there's so many possibilities now, right? Because if the Giants don't have to now trade back, they don't have to go back to 10 and get more draft capital. They could, we'll talk about the possibilities there, but think about the just significant amount of talent now the Giants have at their disposal to draft. Obviously, Dexter Lawrence is a proven commodity. He's a top 5 defensive tackle in football. You cannot replace that, but you're hoping you can replace that in other ways. Now, the players that the Giants have at their disposal, most likely at 5, it's going to be a mixture and combination, and 10 as well, of Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, Jeremiah Love, Vega, Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson, Mansour Delane. Like, there is a ton of players that the Giants can take, and it'll probably end up being 2 of those guys, right? It'll end up being 2 of those top players that I just mentioned. And that's exciting, right? So the Giants can say, well, let's add ourselves a real impact defensive player like a Caleb Downs or a Sonny Styles. And at the same time, why don't we go and reinforce, what Jackson Dart has at his disposal, whether that be Vega to fill left guard and moving John Running over to right guard? Could it be, how do you say his name? The Florida offensive tackle, Maui Noah. Maui Noah. Okay, so I'm really bad with names if you haven't learned that over the past couple of years. But Maui Noah, you could also look at him and say you could kick him inside to guard where he has Pro Bowl upside. Like, there are a lot of different opportunities for the Giants now. They can really get creative. They can go for the best player available, because now the argument of positional value is a little bit less stressful because you have those 2 top 10 picks, right? So you can argue, well, taking bad positional value in the top 5, you have to, it comes with concerns. It comes with the kind of compromised, logic there. But now you have 2 top 10 picks. You can afford to take that gamble. You can afford to say, Yeah, the positional value may not be great, but he's going to make our team significantly better, even if the money doesn't match up for those positions. So it makes it a little bit more justifiable to spend it on a Jeremiah Love or something of that nature. However, John Harbaugh has only had one top 10 pick in his entire 18-year head coaching career. He has two in this draft class. So if he trades back, cool. He knows how to deal with that. He knows how to evaluate later on in the draft. But you're giving John Harbaugh two top 10 picks. These should hit. Like these need, not should, they need to hit. They need to hit. There is no excuse right now. They have to hit. I don't want to be picking in the top 10 anymore, right? We live for the draft too often, guys. I don't want to live for the draft anymore. You know, I want our live stream to start at like 8 p.m. when the 15th pick is coming around. I don't want to start it at 7 p.m. when we're picking 5 anymore. So, you know, just looking forward, these guys got to be impact players, and the coaching staff hopefully will help them get into a position of instant impact rather than taking 3-4 years when the rookie deals are already starting to expire for them to finally start to provide some value.
Yeah, I mean, that's crucial. And obviously, that's the difference in coaching, right? John Harbaugh stepping in with a brand new coaching staff. We expect these guys to step in and immediately have an impact on the Giants' defense or offense or whatever they draft here. But let me say this. The Giants were deciding seemingly between two Ohio State defenders with that 5th overall pick. They were going back and forth. Do they want Sonny Styles or do they want Caleb Downs? There is a chance, Alex, that they could get both of those players now. Caleb Downs at 5, some said that might be a reach because in a lot of mock drafts, he goes more 10 to 12. 10 to 12. The Giants are now picking 10, where they could potentially get Caleb Downs. Meanwhile, they could still get Sonny Styles at 5. That being a possible outcome for next week's draft is truly incredible and really exciting. But that being said, the Giants lost a really good player in the process to now have the opportunity to pick 5th and 10. And let's dive into that, Alex, and talk about the impact and the loss of Dexter Lawrence. But before we get into Dexter Lawrence and the loss of him, Alex, just want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's episode, which is Prize Picks. So if you guys aren't playing on Prize Picks yet, you're missing out. Prize Picks is America's #1 sports picks app. It is a daily fantasy sports platform, and it's really easy to use. No complicated lines to worry about. You just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. Super straightforward, and it's available in most states, including California, Texas, and Florida. One of the coolest parts is that Prize Picks has a feature that allows you to follow your friends and others on the app. You can follow me on the app at Anthony Rivardo to see all of my lineups. So seriously, follow me on Prize Picks and tail my picks. See all my lineups before I even post them here on the channel. If you want to get in on the action, download the app using code HMA and the link in the description. You will get $50 in lineups instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. So good luck, enjoy the games, and remember to play responsibly. And let's take a look at one of these lineups that I want to make. Alex, let's make one together. What catches your eye here with some of the picks that are available on Prize Picks?
Oof. I mean, was it Myles Garrett over 14 sacks? I think I got to go more for that. You know, now they got Dexter Lawrence. Or sorry, not Dexter Lawrence, but rather they have such a strong defense already. I mean, last season it wasn't an anomaly. He is actually that good.
Yeah, Myles Garrett has been the best pass rusher in the NFL year in and year out. I see no reason why he wouldn't put up more than 14 sacks. I agree with you on that one. And I think that we could take some receiving yards here. One line that I think is pretty interesting is Marvin Harrison. I don't really know what the situation is at quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals, but I feel like their receiving core is not strong enough to prevent Marv from going for 1,000 yards, even though he hasn't done that yet. I feel like Marv is due for a breakout, no matter who's playing at quarterback, whether that ends up being Gardner Minshew, Jacoby Brissett, or Ty Simpson potentially in this upcoming NFL draft. I really like Marvin Harrison, so I don't know. I think I'm going to take more on 825.5 receiving yards. But as you guys can see, it's super easy. You make your picks, you lock in your lineup, submit the lineup, and boom, it's just that easy. So like I said, make sure to follow me so you can see all of my picks at Anthony Rivardo. Some picks and get in the game. Like we said, use code HMA and the link in the description below. So Alex, the Giants lost Dexter Lawrence. Yes, we're really excited about picking 5 and 10 in this year's draft, but now their defensive tackle room is headlined by Darius Alexander, Roy Robertson Harris. Uh-oh. That's not very good. That is the worst defensive tackle room in the entire NFL. Step one here, you have to sign DJ Reader. Make no mistake about it. He is the best defensive tackle available on the open market right now. The Giants had him in on a free agent visit. They need to get a deal done with him. But what else do they need to do to offset the loss of Dexter Lawrence? Alex, what's your take on how the Giants can or should rebuild this defensive tackle room?
Well, the Giants have about $18.4 million in cap space now. They saved $13 million by trading Dexter Lawrence. They have a $13.9 million dead cap hit, meaning that's money that's tied up this year no matter what. However, their salary space in 2027 now gets a pretty sizable increase. They're now sitting at $96 million in available salary space. And in 2028, they're sitting pretty at $204 million. Now, of course, a lot of those players are not factored in because they're not extended to that time. But you also have to factor in that Brian Burns and Andrew Thomas are probably going to pull the same move Dexter Lawrence just did: pay us more or trade us. And, I think that's going to happen. It's going to happen sooner rather than later. I think Andrew Thomas, they will extend, and Brian Burns, we'll see. I need to see if Brian Burns can replicate his success last year without Dexter Lawrence, because Lawrence obviously played a big part in supporting, commanding those double teams, allowing Burns to have 1v1 battles and collapse in the interior of the pocket. Like, there's a lot of, kind of residual success you have from having a guy that big and dominant in the inside. So I want to see Burns have another really good year, and then he'll be able to ask for more. That's just kind of how it goes. So, looking at what the Giants have to do now, they have $18 million. They got to pay their draft class. Now, adding that 10th overall pick, Anthony, what does it do? It adds a lot more money to how much the Giants have to save for this draft class. So you're talking about $10 to $11 million the Giants need for this draft class. And that leaves you with about $7 million. It's not a lot. DJ Reader's probably not coming in at that range. Maybe he's coming in at 4. I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. Maybe 4 to 5 million for a season, but it's a 1-year deal. So that's the benefit of kind of what the Giants have now. Whoever they sign, similar to Darnell Mooney or Calvin Austin, it's a 1-year stopgap solution, and the Giants can then pivot. There's no big money tied up in any players that could be compromised, degrading or aging. Like, it's one and done. You get the value, you move on and try to solve it in next year's draft or next year's free agency. So I do think that DJ Reader and Calais Campbell, both those guys, I'd probably bring both of them in, to be honest.
Yeah, me too. The Giants need to get 2 legitimate starters on the interior of that defensive line. I think they're going to draft somebody at some point in this NFL draft, but should you really expect a 4th-round pick potentially to start at defensive tackle for you? No, you shouldn't. That's not really good practice. So I agree with you. I think you should go out there, sign DJ Reader, and you should sign Calais Campbell and maybe somebody else. Why not just keep adding to the interior of this defensive line with proven starting talent? That's what the Giants need, because they don't have any of that on the defensive line right now. But let me just clarify a couple points that you made, though, Alex, about the Giants cap space. Yes, you're right. They do right now have $18 million in cap space. They only have $3 million in effective cap space because of what you just mentioned there. The 10th overall pick is expensive. The Giants draft class is now worth $15 million against the cap. So they only have $3 million to truly spend. Now they can create more money. Absolutely. There are ways that they can create that money. They can restructure Burns. They can restructure some other players like Andrew Thomas and a few other veterans that are on the roster. They could create that money. So the $3 million, they could still get DJ Reader and the Calais Campbell under contract if they really wanted to. But that's really what the Giants have: $3 million in effective cap space, because their draft class is very expensive now. And that's not even factoring in the fact that, hey, the Giants might trade down from 10. They might add even more picks here. So their draft class could be worth $20 million against the salary cap potentially. So it's going to get pricey next week. That $18 million, don't get too excited about it, guys. It's going to dry up through the NFL draft. And then there's only $3 million left over right now. But again, they can create more money. One of the ways that they can create more money, Alex, is by trading Kavon Thibodeaux. And I want to ask you about this. This is becoming a point of contention for some Giants fans. It's a hot debate right now. The Giants now have a gaping hole at defensive tackle. They have a deficit of talent there, but they have a surplus of talent at edge rusher because they have 2 starters in Burns and Abdul Carter, and then they also have Kavon Thibodeaux. Do you think that the Giants should look to trade Kavon either to clear that $14 million in cap space and then use whatever pick they get from him to invest at defensive tackle, or maybe trade Kavon in a player swap for a defensive tackle? What's your thought on that? The fact that the Giants have a surplus on the edge, they have a deficit at defensive tackle, and trading Kavon Thibodeaux could potentially be the solution to make defensive tackle a more respectable position.
Well, I'll say this, right? Like, I still think the Giants are somewhat rebuilding, right? I think they're going to try to win. They're going to be competitive this year, and they have better coaching staff. They have Harbaugh. Like, all those things are true. But I don't want to sit here and pretend like this team doesn't need more development. It does need a bit more time. There's a good chance that Javon Holland may not be here in 2027. Paulson Adebo might not be here in 2027. There's going to be some turnover of the roster once again, guys that John Harbaugh simply doesn't want. That could happen, right? So I do think this is still a 2-3 year. We get to where we want to be in 2 or 3 years. Like, this season is going to be somewhat of a restructuring, rebuilding year where they're evaluating their talent. They're seeing what things are like. They're still trying to be competitive and are competitive simultaneously. But, with that being said, like, there's a lot of needs, and trading Kavon Thibodeaux is one of the ways that you can say, well, let's just hit restart completely. Like, let's add more draft capital, add more resources to give Harbaugh a chance to bring in guys that he wants. Listen, a guy that, if you get a 3rd round pick for Kavon Thibodeaux, that 3rd round pick is 99.9% not going to be the same value in 2026 that Kavon's going to bring. However, if you look at a 4-year window instead of a 1-year window, you can make your argument that 3rd round pick could bring more value than Kavon would in one season. So that's kind of the perspective I would sell, is that if the Giants, and I kind of believe that this is a strategic rebuild, this is not a 1-year Super Bowl window. This is a 3 to 4 year window where they're thinking, let's build this up into a really strong organization, really strong roster. And Jackson Dart's still under contract on his rookie deal for 4 more years, probably 3, because they'll extend him before the 5th-year option kicks in. But you kind of look at the window of a 3rd round pick that you get from Kavon. It's more valuable long-term, than it is short-term. And if the Giants feel like they're still strategically rebuilding, it is in their best interest to trade Kavon Thibodeaux instead of letting him walk for nothing, which is most likely what they're going to do. So I think that, like, I don't want to lose. I think, like, in my guts, like, I don't want to lose another pass rusher. I don't want to lose another guy after just trading Dexter Lawrence. But if the Giants feel like they are strategically restructuring for the long run, it is the right decision to trade him, regardless of how I feel about losing another defensive line. So you have to think about the value you're getting. So, like, yeah, the defensive line is weakened. Let's be very clear about that. However, that 10th overall pick could turn into a player that makes your safety unit significantly better, your linebacker room significantly better, your cornerback room, your receiver, like, another grouping, another unit on the team is going to get significantly better with that 10th overall pick. And a 3rd round pick for the Giants via Kavon Thibodeaux, it may not be immediate, probably won't be, but I'll say this. It took about 4 years for Cordell Flott to get to where we wanted to see him. Wan'Dale Robinson, where we wanted to see him. It took 4 years for those guys to really get there. I would wager this coaching staff is going to get a lot more value in years 2 and 3 out of 3rd round picks than years 4. So that's where my logic is kind of going with this.
I would agree with that, because I think that Wan'Dale Robinson could have been a better player earlier in his career if the Giants coaching staff put him in a better position to succeed. And I absolutely feel that way about Cordell Flott. Like, if you remember, they pushed him into the slot in the 2nd season of his career. He wasn't a slot corner. Then year 3, he goes back outside, starts to flash. Year 4 has his breakout. So I trust that this better coaching staff will get better results out of these players sooner. So I agree with you on that. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if another domino falls here, if the Dexter Lawrence domino pushes down to the Kavon Thibodeaux domino, and if he gets traded, if the Giants' holes all over this roster ends up creating an opportunity for them to trade it down again in this draft class and add more picks. It's going to be very interesting to see the domino effect of this deal. What were you going to add there?
So I wanted to ask you a question. I just saw something that's quite interesting, and it does paint a pretty bad picture of Joe Schoen, and I want to just discuss it briefly. Apparently, according to, I want to say it was Mr. Schultz, Paul Schwartz, Dexter Lawrence's agent, Joel Siegel, didn't even want to talk to Joe Schoen in negotiations. Like, he actively avoided him. Like, I think he spoke to more Don Aponte in this situation, but he didn't even want to talk to Joe Schoen. I think that Joe Schoen, I know, I don't want to be overly critical, but it's warranted at times, has done irreparable damage to the way that agents and players perceive negotiating with the Giants. I think partially why bringing in John Harbaugh and Don Aponte was so important was to smooth that over, to have some sort of respect in the building where players, agents can come to the Giants and say, okay, we don't need to deal with Joe Schoen if we don't have to. We can talk to Aponte, we can talk to Harbaugh, because I don't really get the sense that any agents want to deal with Joe Schoen. He has rubbed every agent the wrong way, every single one. It's a really bad situation for the Giants to be in. And to be honest with you, the fact that your GM is pretty much hated by every agent, it's not a good or bad thing. I think that's the case with a lot of GMs, but like he's kind of had some bad practices that I do think are compromising at times.
It's that he's hated by the players. That's the issue.
That
Let me
too.
say a few
No
things on Joe
loyalty.
Shane as it relates to Dexter Lawrence. Number one, credit to him. Great job getting the 10th overall pick from the Bengals. Okay, credit to Joe Shane. We are not going to just, crap all over Joe Shane after the results that he just yielded. That was a great trade from the perspective of this player doesn't want to be here and you got a 10th overall pick for him. That's an impressive haul. So credit to Joe Shane for that. But let's say some things about why Dexter Lawrence was traded. What have I been saying on the channel, Alex? It wasn't about money. This was not about money. All these reporters wanted to tell everybody that it was about money. I told you guys with my knowledge and information that this was not about money. He didn't want to be here. The question of why didn't he want to be here? Because of Joe Shane. That was the issue. And that is now coming to light through the reporting of guys like Paul Schwartz and others. This is what I've been saying on the channel. Joe Shane rubbed Dexter Lawrence the wrong way each of the last 2 years through bad contract negotiations, giving him fake incentives that he could never hit in that contract. And then, of course, watching his friends on the team, his really good players like a Leonard Williams and a Julian Love and a Saquon Barkley leave and go win championships. All of that amalgamated into this sense of frustration. And when you look at the NFLPA report card, a D+ for Joe Shane was by far and away the worst rating for any general manager in the NFL last year. The players in that locker room hate him. There's no way around that, guys. I'm sorry. And I understand you could say, well, the players don't have to love the general manager. They have to love the head coach. Yes, that's true to an extent. They have to respect the general manager, and the players do not respect the general manager right now, and that is a problem. And not only do the players not respect him, Alex, you're right. Agents don't respect him either. Joe Shane has done certain things over the last few years that have really offended people, have really created a frustration and a distrust, not just with the players, but with coaches. We saw the tension between him and Brian Daboll last year, and with agents as well, and other general managers around the league. So this is a problem. It's one that the Giants need to address. It's one that I think they are addressing. It's why they brought in Dawn Aponte. But it's also, Alex, in my opinion, why the Giants have not yet extended Joe Shane. I would not rule out Joe Shane leaving this organization before the start of the 2026 season. I've said that before. I know people go, you're crazy. What are you thinking? What are you talking about? There is precedence for a general manager to stay with the organization through the NFL draft and then leave after that. The Giants are not going to have him play out the final year of his contract. That doesn't happen in the NFL. The general manager always gets an extension, so they have that one extra year of protection. But the Giants haven't extended Joe Shane. Why? That's a big question mark, and I think we get our answer shortly after the NFL draft. Let's see if the Giants do make any changes. And I think that this Dexter Lawrence situation, these negotiations that they just struggled to get through because of Joe Shane being involved with this organization, it's another moment where they say, I don't know how much further we can go along with him as our general manager. So that's my whole take on the Joe Shane thing that you kind of mentioned there, Alex. We'll see what happens after the NFL draft. Fans will say, well, if you're going to fire him after the NFL draft, why didn't you just fire him beforehand? Because all of his scouts and front office executives have the intel of the scouting throughout the last 365 days, and you need that. So you keep him on, and you have somebody else like Dawn Aponte and John Harbaugh make picks, but you hold on to Joe Shane's staff and intel. That's really important for the Giants to have. So that's kind of my whole summary of this Dexter Lawrence, Joe Shane thing, if you have anything else to add.
No, I think you kind of touched on what I was going to say. The reason that Joe Shane is still here, not extended, because that is a huge red flag. Like anyone can tell, your general manager going into a season, you have to start scouting for next year's draft class the second the season starts, right? So like you don't want that guy there if he's not going to be here in 2027 when the 2027 draft comes around, right? All of the information he's collected is now irrelevant because it doesn't apply anymore. Someone else will have a totally different perspective. But the reason that he's here is because, like you said, they needed that intel. And John Harbaugh really likes the analytical approach he actually does have. The way that the Giants have modernized their draft process has really elevated, the way they go about things, not as archaic and rustic as it used to be. The Giants now have a much more modernized front office, and John Harbaugh really likes that. He wanted that. I think that Joe Shane is kind of training his replacement in a way because John Harbaugh's kind of doing both jobs at the moment. But Harbaugh's respect, the reason they're paying him $20 million per season is so that he can smooth over the bad blood that Joe Shane has caused in the past. The problem is the Dexter Lawrence situation was never going to be solved. Like not even Harbaugh could fix that because Dexter Lawrence just hated him that much. Just did not want to be here, was disrespected to a degree that he felt Well, I've been here through every single bad season. I've played my ass off. I've been your best player, and you've disrespected me. And I know people will say, well, he had 2 years left on his contract. He had no guarantees left. And guys, the NFL is all about guaranteed money. All about it. If you think you're right, if you're sitting here like, he had 2 years left, why didn't you just stay to that deal? He had no guarantees. What that means is if Dexter Lawrence gets hurt, the Giants could release him. He breaks his leg and can never play again. Like the Giants can cut him and he doesn't get a dollar. Doesn't get a single dollar the rest of his time. No guaranteed money left. So he's never going to play on a contract with no guarantees. No player would. No player would. So especially of his caliber. So, the culmination of this has been it's been catastrophic, disrespectful in many ways, but at the same time, like you said, I will give credit to Joe Shane for helping to get that 10th overall pick. I think that is certainly a good credit to throw his way, but John Harbaugh can't smooth over every single bad thing that Joe Shane's done. The only thing Joe has at his disposal right now is to shut up and listen. Shut up, learn, listen, let Harbaugh and Aponte take the reins so that he can become better, so that he can fall in line, so he can be the guy that supports them and they're not fixing his past mistakes. Like that's the only way he can survive this. So we'll see how that goes. But like you said, after the draft is over, all bets are off. Anything can happen.
Absolutely. So let's talk about that draft, though, before we get out of here, Alex. Pick 5, pick 10. Gut feeling right now. What's going to happen on Thursday night for the Giants?
Oof. I think the Giants are going to take the best player available regardless of positional value. That's how I think about it right now. Adding the 10th overall pick, I think does
both 5 and 10.
I mean, yeah, why not? Why not? I mean, 10, of course. Yeah, 10, you should absolutely go BPA because, the players that are going to be there are going to be, honestly, guys that have positional value already. Like Mansour Delane is positionally valuable because of cornerback. Carnell Tate's a receiver, like positionally valuable. You could even look at Ruben Bain. You could argue, okay, well, that's a big guy. Maybe you could put him inside a little bit. Maybe you could rotate him and Abdul Carter and do some unique things. Who knows? You could trade Kavon, do some all crazy sorts of stuff, whatever. There are more valuable positions that are going to be there at 10. So I think you accidentally walk away with a good pick there. Vega, I would even argue if you think he's going to be Quentin Nelson, he is freaking valuable. He is worth that. So he's worth a 10th overall pick. So, right now I think they just go BPA at both spots. Harbaugh's like, we're not drafting for value. We're drafting for gold jackets. And I think that's the perspective they're probably going to take. So I could definitely see a Jeremiah Love. If he's there at 5, I could see the Giants sitting there like Jackson Dart with that type of talent at running back. Like, you don't have to worry about your offense. Now you just keep investing in your defense long-term.
Yeah, I mean, you could take Jeremiah Love at 5 and then Mansour Delane at 10 or Caleb Downs at 10. Whichever best defensive player falls to the board at 10, you can take there. So I think that my perspective is a little bit different. And number 5, you're going BPA no matter what now. You don't have to address a need at 5. You're going BPA. Number 10, you can take a player on your board who fills a need and is also close to being BPA, right? So let's say that Mansour Delane isn't your highest graded player on the board, but he's like your 3rd or 4th highest. You can take him at 10 now because you already went BPA with a number 5 overall pick. So that's kind of my perspective on it. But again, like you said, at number 10, they're going to get somebody with great positional value at number 10 overall, and it's going to be close enough to best player available that you're still going to walk away with just 2 bona fide blue chip talents. Alex, there is a lot of chatter inside the league right now that there's only maybe 10 blue chip players in this draft class. There's maybe only 15 true first round graded players. That's what we've been hearing from NFL sources from the national media. The Giants are now going to get 2 of those 10 blue chip talents. That's huge. And if they trade down, they could still do that. And then they'll get another day 2 pick to address another need on this roster. The world is their oyster right now. That's really the case for the New York Giants. And that's super, super exciting. So I can't wait for it. Thursday night's going to be a lot of fun. So is Friday and Saturday. And we're going to be live on the channel all 3 days as we keep promoting it here, guys. Do make sure to tune in to those live streams. We're doing giveaways and a bunch of other fun stuff, plus our live reactions, unfiltered reactions to the New York Giants NFL draft. So definitely tune in. It's going to be a blast. Can't wait for that. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, ring the bell, all that fun stuff. Make sure, guys, that you do check out Prize Picks. Click the link down below in the description box and use code HMA for $50 when you bet or when you pick $5. So make sure to check that all out, and we'll catch you all in the next one. Have a good one, and let's go New York Giants.